What's up guys, my name is Odo, and in this video I'll be talking about the Austin repeaters in Dauntless. And I want to start off the video by saying that the repeaters should not be looked at as if they are ranged weapons, because that's just not how you play them. You honestly play them really close to the behemoth, as if they're shotguns. So that's something that people have to understand before we get into this video, because it's really important to know that. With that being said, in this video, I will be covering the customization of repeaters, basic shots, skill shot abilities, thrown abilities, reloads, empowered reloads, and prisms. So let's get into it. The first thing you should know about repeaters is that they are a modular weapon, and that means you can change the different components of the weapon to better suit your playstyle and help you defeat the behemoth you're hunting. You can do this by pressing L on the keyboard, then clicking the repeater icon, and then clicking customize. And after doing this, you will see a customize repeaters window open up, showing you the four main components of repeaters, which are the grip, chamber, prism, and barrel. And if you want to swap any of these components out for their counterparts, all you have to do is click on the component you want to change, and a menu will open up, and you can then select the counterpart you want to use. So the general customization of repeaters is normally Admiral's Grip in every single instance, Ballistic Chamber depending on your playstyle, Duelist Prism also depending on your playstyle, and a barrel that is strong against whatever behemoth you're hunting. And what I mean by this is that in Dauntless there are behemoths that are weak to certain elements. An example of this is Rezakiri. Rezakiri is weak to umbral weapons, so the best barrel to take against Rezakiri would be the Twilight Barrel for repeaters. Now let's get into the combat of repeaters by talking about basic shots. When it comes to repeaters and basic shots, there's a fundamental thing that everyone needs to understand, and that is that there's fall off damage. And the fall off damage is actually pretty substantial. If you're too far away from the behemoth, you'll be doing anywhere from 6 to around 100 damage a shot, which is really not good compared to, like, if you're actually close to the behemoth, you can do somewhere around 260 to 300 damage a shot. Now the nice thing about repeaters is that they will tell you if you are close enough to the behemoth or not by giving you a red crosshair. If your crosshair is red when you're aiming at the behemoth, that means that you are close enough to the behemoth and you will not be affected by fall off damage. And likewise, if your repeater crosshair is not red, it means you need to get closer to the behemoth or you're being affected by fall off damage and you won't be doing as much damage as you could at that moment. And now we can take a look at where your burst damage comes from, which is your skill shot, or your right click. Right now, there are only two skill shots or right clicks in the game for repeaters, and that is Ballistic Chamber and Marksman Chamber. The Ballistic Chamber fires an explosive missile in a line, dealing 400 damage in an area upon impact. Empowered fires 3 missiles in a spread. So this is the bread and butter of burst damage when you're talking about repeaters. Now keep in mind, when it comes to the Ballistic Chamber, fall off damage is still a factor, so you have to make sure that your crosshair is red or you won't be getting the maximum damage you could be. Now the Marksman Chamber isn't necessarily for burst damage as the Ballistic Chamber is, and instead it fires a shot in a line, dealing 250 damage to the first behemoth hit. If a part is struck, that part takes 40% more damage from shots for 10 seconds. Empowered. Damage bonus increased to 80% and 25% to all allies, so it's another ally buff just like the Admiral's Grip is. When it comes down to your favorite chamber to use, it's all about preference. I prefer Ballistic Chamber in almost every single behemoth fight, but I will use Marksman on Pangar sometimes just for fun. Now that we've talked about basic shots and skill shots, let's talk about what comes next. And that's normally the reload, but in this case, it's going to be the thrown ability or the Q. The first thrown ability is the Admiral's Grip, which launches a collectible buff a short distance, granting 15% increased damage and attack speed for 12 seconds when collected. Empowered grants the same buff to all slayers. The other thrown ability is the Saboteur's Grip, which launches an explosive mine a short distance. The mine arms after a short period, dealing 600 damage to the first behemoth that touches it. Empowered. Deals 800 instead and can interrupt behemoths, which is the part I don't like. I don't like that it has to be empowered to interrupt behemoths. And honestly, because of that, I only use Admiral's Grip. And I only recommend Admiral's Grip to players, especially new players, because Saboteur's Grip just doesn't lend itself nicely to new players. And with that being said, now we can talk about the reloads. When it comes to reloading, timing is everything. If you don't time the reload properly, a lot of times you'll just end up getting hit and it'll cancel the reload, so you have to reload again. And this happens the most whenever you don't keep an eye on how many aether bullets or whatever you want to call it you have in your clip. If you just keep spamming whenever you're out of bullets, the game will automatically reload for you and you'll end up getting hit. So you have to work on not letting that happen as much as possible, which means you have to keep an eye on how many bullets you have in your gun at all times. And honestly, I do wish that there was a toggle feature to turn the automatic reload off. I don't like playing with it. It doesn't make me happy. It's just not a fun time. I don't like it at all, to be honest. Now, something I do like about repeaters is the empowered reload, which is reloading close to the behemoth so you absorb some of its energy, empowering shots and abilities for a short time. And what that means is you have to be close enough to the behemoth so you can suck the aether out of it, which sounds a little risque if I'm being honest, but it's what you gotta do if you want to be good at repeaters, alright? The nice thing about this is you will actually have two indicators telling you if you have an empowered reload or not. The first indicator is a green essence being sucked out of the behemoth into your repeaters. And the second indicator is that the bars for your right click in your queue will glow blue and green. Now, the last thing I want to talk about are the prisms for repeaters. The prism part of repeaters is like the unique effect for most other weapons. It just adds that little bit of something to the weapon. There is the Duelist Prism, which reduces both ability cooldowns by 2 seconds when dodging through behemoth attacks. And what this means is it reduces the cooldown for your thrown ability and your skill shot ability by 2 seconds every time you dodge an attack. So this prism is really good for fights that are fast paced, like Koshai and Riftstalker. Then you have the Eclipse Prism, which dealing damage has a chance based on damage dealt to generate a shadow orb that increases damage dealt by 3% for 5 seconds. If 5 or more orbs are present, the bonus doubles. Now this prism is my go-to prism when I'm trying to do the most damage possible. And then there's the Sharpshooter Prism, which is deal 8 increased damage when attacking the same part multiple times, stacks up to 5 times. In all honesty, I'm not really a fan of this prism, and I think that the Eclipse Prism is better in all scenarios, but if someone has a different opinion, let me know in the comments below. And next up, we have the Stoneheart Prism, which is my favorite prism in the game for repeaters. And this prism is all about dealing damage, has a chance based on damage dealt to grant a stacking, refreshing 40 health shield that lasts for 12 seconds. I really like this prism because it's really fun to see just how high you can get the stacks to go, and it's just enjoyable for that reason. Aside from that, if anyone is having trouble with a fight, I recommend this prism because it will help you stay alive, because dealing damage lets you get a shield to absorb damage. So it's a really cool thing. It's a really nice interaction. So if you're having trouble on a hunt, use this prism if you're playing repeaters. And finally, we have the Windrunner Prism, which is gain 20% increased move speed when at 6 or less ammo. Now, don't get me wrong, when I first saw this sell, I never thought I would ever use it, but I honestly found a use for it recently, and that use is gathering materials and plants. And I do that by running this prism with +6 Swift and just zooming through the map, gathering all the plants I need really quickly. And that will be it for this video, guys. If you liked the video, hit that like button. If you disliked the video, hit the dislike button. If you have comments or questions, leave a comment or a question in the comments. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.